My name's Rebecca Healey, and this is my husband Tripp, and today we're going to tell you about the story of our one-year-old little boys, Benjamin and Aaron. We're just going to go through the details of my pregnancy and their stay in the NICU. We went through 2 years of trying to get pregnant, and after a miscarriage and several failed pregnancies, we finally got pregnant in 2011, and we went for our 8-week ultrasound, and we found out that we were having twins. Because it was a high-risk pregnancy, any pregnancy with twins is, we had to go back for multiple ultrasounds. And about 13 weeks into the pregnancy, I called the doctor's office and said, "Can I come in? I'd like to see how the babies are doing. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had an ultrasound." And they said, "Yeah, sure, come on down." Well, I went by myself to an ultrasound at 13 weeks and walked in, and everything seemed normal. I sat down and she started the ultrasound, and I could tell that it wasn't a normal ultrasound. Something looked off, but she wouldn't say why. She just wasn't acting herself. When the ultrasound was done, she said we needed to go and talk to a doctor. And at that point, I'm nervous, but I don't know what's going on. So she walks me to Dr. Waller's office, and we sit down, and he goes on to explain that our babies had a condition called PUV, and basically it is a condition where their bladders were enlarged because they were not draining or doing what they were supposed to do. It is a condition that basically you could tell by the look on his face. The prognosis wasn't good, although he didn't say much because he wanted me to see a specialist in Birmingham. He immediately got me referred to Birmingham, and we went to a clinic in Birmingham where they sat me down and did another ultrasound, and that specialist basically went on to tell us that there were no options. He explained what would happen if their bladders didn't drain, that basically the babies would not have amniotic fluid and their lungs would never develop, and that even if they lived, they would be born with very small lungs, and they may take a breath or two or could even live a couple of hours, but that they would never be able to live outside of my body. He didn't leave us with much hope.
We were told that we should consider terminating the pregnancy because they would either not make it to term, or that if they did make it, that they would not live very long afterwards. And we received that news, and of course that was not an option for us, and we knew that, and we explained that. And I remember driving home that day from Birmingham and feeling very at a loss for words. Neither of us said much. We didn't really know what to say, and we felt like it was important to share that with our 3 older children, because we weren't certain that things were going to turn out very well for the pregnancy, and so we wanted them to understand that up front and to be a part of that. And it was a very difficult day. We
just had to trust that the Lord knew better than we did, that there was obviously a plan for this pregnancy and why we were going through this. We did a healing service at our church, and a week later went back for an ultrasound, and one of the baby's bladders had started fixing. There was no explanation for it. The doctor had no reason to believe why it was happening. He just said, "It looks like Aaron's bladder is getting better." We were very excited about that, but at the same time we weren't sure what we were supposed to do about Ben's bladder. I received an email with a recommendation to see another specialist in Birmingham, and so we went when I was 16 weeks pregnant to a doctor at Brookwood Hospital, Dr. Gonzalez, and he saw us on a Friday afternoon and said, "Well, your only option is to do an in utero procedure." So I was like, "All right, when do you want us to come back?" And he said, "No, we need to do it today." And we did the procedure that afternoon in his office. It was crazy. I couldn't believe that it was like, we're going to do a procedure today, but we did an in utero procedure where they basically went in through my stomach and they drained Benjamin's bladder. They put a stent in the bladder that was to continue draining it throughout the pregnancy.
It was up and down over the next several weeks and months of going back in and getting those ultrasounds done and seeing that things continued to improve for Aaron, and Benjamin's bladder would sort of fluctuate from day to day, but continued to improve. The reason I remember it so well, it was right at the end of hunting season that we got the call. I think Rebecca was about 28 weeks, and I got a call. I was sitting in my tree stand, and I got a call on my cell phone saying that I should get to the hospital very quickly because she was going to have to be admitted, that the babies were in distress, and that we were going to go ahead and have to put her on bed rest in the hospital. And so I remember getting down as quickly as I could and getting up to the hospital, and she spent the next few days there, and it was real touch and go. We were nervous, didn't know what to expect, but we were just glad that we had made it that far in the pregnancy, with the boys doing as well as they were. I remember the day that the boys were actually born. It was that morning, and Dr. Griggs came in and said that the fluid level was really low around the boys, and that but that he wasn't planning on taking them right then, and Rebecca was adamant that we needed to go ahead and do that. And so, but sure enough, later that afternoon, she ended up going into labor and delivering the twins by C-section that afternoon. And it was amazing because they actually came out crying, which was something we weren't sure they would be able to do. They both did within just a few seconds of being born. They also urinated, which was something we weren't sure they would really be able to do. And they both did that successfully very quickly.
They came out, and I listened, I was nervous, and I heard a cry. And then within 30 seconds, 45 seconds later, I heard a second cry. It was incredible. Although we heard cries, you could tell there was a lot of chaos in the room, and one of the babies, Benjamin, was taken out immediately, so we didn't get to see him. Aaron, we got to see for a very brief second, and then he was rushed out as well. They both went straight to the neonatal intensive care unit at Baptist East, and they were placed in giraffe beds, which, because we are the ambassador family for the March of Dimes, we found out, even while we were in the NICU, that they had actually donated the money that provided those giraffe beds. The first 24 to 48 hours was very scary. They weighed 2 pounds 6 ounces and 2 pounds 7 ounces. And they were given the surfactant for their lungs that the March of Dimes did the research for to provide. And that surfactant is why they weren't on ventilators. You know, a lot of babies are born at 28 weeks and they spend weeks to months on ventilators. But our babies, because they were given that surfactant in their lungs, they never were on a ventilator long term. They had a CPAP that helped them breathe for a few days, and then they went straight to nasal cannulas. But because of the research that the March of Dimes provides, they were able to breathe on their own much faster. Our baby spent a little over 2 months in the NICU. Benjamin, who was the baby that had the in utero procedure, actually had less problems in the NICU, and he spent 62 days in the NICU. Aaron, who was the one who didn't have the in utero procedure, spent 66 days in the NICU.
There's a little flame inside us all. Some shine bright, some shine small. The rains will come and the waters rise, but don't you ever lose your light. In this life you will know love and pain, joy and sorrow. So when it hurts, when times get hard, don't forget whose child you are.
Since becoming the ambassador family for the March of Dimes, I have been just amazed at the information I've learned about their organization. I knew before a lot of what they did from our personal experience, but learning more, I've found out the work they do, the research that they did about polio and the vaccines they created for that. I learned about the education they have for moms as far as prenatal vitamins and folic acid, and how they really work starting with moms and educating them so that they prevent preterm labor, they prevent premature births, so that there are less babies in the NICU. But then they also work with families once their babies are born premature in the NICUs. They come in, they have family support groups, they have organizations where you can contact them about family support when your babies are in the NICU. The March of Dimes does incredible things for families, not to mention the amount of money that they spend sending huge pieces of equipment and developing things such as the giraffe beds and funding those completely for NICUs in our area, but also all over the nation. The March of Dimes is a huge organization, and they do amazing things for our community. I would 100% recommend supporting them, not only financially, but being there in person. They have a walk, they have breakfast for babies. They've got multiple events throughout the year where they are raising money, and that money goes back into our local area. The River region has its own March of Dimes, and the money that we raise at the walk and at Breakfast for Babies goes straight back to our local NICUs. So someone in your family may eventually use that same money that you're donating.
One day there will be no more pain, and we will finally see Jesus' face. So until then, I'm gonna try to brave the dark and let my